Hi, I'm Torte de Lini. When it comes to Dota 2, I think the problem that we're all kind of facing is kind of understanding what we did right or wrong in a match that ultimately led to your win or loss in that match. Even in my own games, let's take a look. I think even in my own games, I think a lot about the deaths and try to trace back on why I played so poorly and maybe what my next steps are. So when I received the replay from my first ping members on YouTube, thank you very much, I thought this would be a good opportunity for all of us to kind of get insight into how maybe we can break down a replay, maybe analyze what went right, what went wrong, and ultimately create some lessons we can take away from this. So let's try something new here where I'll give a second opinion on this match and see what we can find. For those watching, let me know what you think went wrong or even right in this match and maybe how we can improve. By the way, if you like these videos and want a chance to have your match reviewed, consider supporting me by becoming a paying member of my YouTube channel. And I will try to pick one every month or so to review here on this channel. All proceeds go to keeping my in-game Dota 2 guides alive and affording to continue to do these videos. As always, please like and subscribe. Okay, so I have a replay from Ryuwalker, and he wrote to me on YouTube. This is one of those games where I felt completely lost. Laning didn't go too bad or too well. I tried to help other lanes, but there is this problem I have whenever I play support. I just don't know what to do sometimes if I don't see a potential gank or everyone is farming. I just roam around and kind of waste my time. I really need tips for this, for why we lost. I'm not really sure what to say. So first things first, I think that's a perfectly reasonable feeling and situation. Sometimes you think things are going fine and then suddenly it's all downhill and you're just wondering what the hell happened. So let's roll up our sleeves and see what the hell is up. First thing I like to do is actually start backwards and read the post-match score and basically feel how the match comes across in terms of expectations. I kind of like doing it this way because it feels like we're making an autopsy report on the match. We're obviously going to get to review how the match events unfolded, but I like to make inferences we can just create from the post-match screen. Right, so let's first start with your team. We can see the enemy's lineup screams kind of snowball and end early. Alchemist ends the game by usually around 30 minutes, which here is about 35. And that's why he's popular. They have a Ricky who likes to get the jump on kills early with a diffusal blade before farming, let's say, larger items like Mantis Style. Acceptor is also pretty popular. And they have a Mars to initiate with some pretty good supports on their team, the Lion as well as the Silencer. So already going into this match, you know you're kind of racing against the clock here, where the enemy team wants a lot of mid-game kills and to eventually end the game. Okay, let's review your lineup. You have the Death Prophet, which is pretty good, Storm, and Anti-Mage. So we can establish that your lineup is kind of 2 points of strategy, right? You have early game ganks with Storm Spirit to then capitalize with Death Prophet's Exorcism. And then to follow up with that after, we're going to then go with map control, which should give room for Anti-Mage to farm and carry the match during the late game period. We've now framed our expectations of how the match goes down. Cool. Okay, now let's dive into the graphs real quick here. It did look like you guys had a small leadish in terms of experience, but the net worth honestly doesn't really show much growth for the first 20 minutes. Knowing Alchemist just tries to end the game by 30 plus minutes, my immediate assumption is that you guys just never really took off in terms of actual lead, and Alchemist eventually eclipsed you. If we swing on over to the player net worth, we can see you guys had some competitiveness of your team's core heroes in terms of net worth, with a slight lead in net worth, but never really beating out Alchemist. I could see something definitely happen by the 25, maybe 26, 27 minute mark. So we're going to definitely write that down to remember. Watch around 22, 25, 26 minutes. Right, so now lastly, my bread and butter, player item timing. Since I spend so much time working on builds, I feel like we can actually draw a lot of information from this. Right off the bat, I could see a 19-minute battle fear on Anti-Mage. Usually the timing is around 12 to 15 minutes, so a full 4 minutes delay on Anti-Mage tells me he didn't really get enough time to take advantage of that Battle Fury to get a lot of farm. By 19-20 minutes, the enemy team had a Blink Dagger on Mars, they had a Blink Dagger on Lion, a Diffusal Blade on Ricky. It's a little bit, I would say, significantly late. Maelstrom Shadow Blade on an Alchemist. I mean, that's 5950 gold versus like 4100 gold on Battle Fury for Anti-Mage, so pretty stark contrast of who is really farming and who's really taking the lead here. So what can we sum up about this? The enemy team got a lot of their proactive ganking items by 20 minutes, while your team had a Battle Fury and Change, except for Death Prophet, which doesn't really help her in this situation, where she'll just get hexed and stunned 50 times over, and an Orchid and Change on Storm Spirit at 16 minutes, when Orchid usually takes 13 minutes to get. I do have to make a small mention that since this is Archon, item timings are much more forgiving if you're late, but they also deeply affect your success in what the item was intended for. Looking at this scoreboard, I'm actually surprised to see not a single person on your team has a Black King bar versus Mars' Spear, Lion's Hex, Earthbike as well, Ricky's Smoke and Diffusal Slow, Alchemist Concoction Stun, and Silencer's Global Silence. Lastly, we can see that Ogre Magi and Death Prophet did the most damage right over here, meaning that Storm and Anti-Mage just never really got off the ground. Okay, let's jump right in here. Now, I've made a lot of assumptions before even going into this match. I claimed that 1, Anti-Mage and Storm Spirit didn't get to do enough to really get your team off the ground, nor honestly really hit their item timings to be as effective as we hoped. Number 2, that the lead you guys thought you had wasn't really that much of a lead according to net worth graphs. Number 3, that something bad or something happened at 20 to 26 minutes that made an even game into one where you guys lost. And then lastly, number 4, that you guys didn't really buy any defensive items, Black King Bar for your Storm and DP, as well as maybe some defensive items for the support, like Force Staff Glimmer, etc. Alright, let's start with the first mistake maybe, or first challenge we want to talk about at 0.36 is 0.40. For stars, when we look at the enemy Slake Flame, it's really bad, right? I mean, we've seen Alchemist and Ricky, mean that both of these heroes both need items, and they literally cannot support one another in a lane. And that's a clue for you as Ogre Magi. You can see you being really aggressive, which is great. They can't really fight back. You're tanky as hell. You have 800 plus health and 6 armor, more than any of these other heroes. On top of that, I think the second thing I want to mention is the fact that I don't really think he got the right facet. I think the learning curve facet for Ogre Magi is much better, especially for offensive timings, where at level 2, you have 2 levels in Ignite and a Fire Blast, meaning you and your Death Prophet can slow enemies hard and stun them for her to then Spirit Siphon them to death. What's more is that honestly Learning Curve effectively gives you a whole level, since all your abilities and talents are available 1 level earlier. So you max out Ignite with the extra DPS from the talent at level 9, and you get your ultimate ability earlier. Since you have Hand of Midas, or usually you do go for Hand of Midas, you get a lot of experience quickly, meaning you are reaching higher levels much more quickly as well. Right, so as mentioned, you can see the enemy team has already thrown out a lot at you, yet you still are pretty strong, right? You have 5 regen, or almost 5 regen. That means you recover much faster than them and can thus be more aggressive, especially if you want the right facet. But what I really want to make note here is how you throw out so much mana so quickly, and unless you really are able to achieve something with those spells, kind of haphazardly throwing that stuff out doesn't really achieve all that much, and it makes it much harder to then want to use your spells since you don't have the mana when you really want to make a play or harassment, right? Like, wouldn't it be nice here to have additional harass to then follow through and attack the Alchemist? That's kind of the goal of your spells. They kind of build off one another for your goal, which is to harass and push the Alchemist away. Here, the Alchemist feels relatively safe because you have no mana. I think you are going to ultimately get the kill here, but look how easier it would have been if you had actually an Ignite to follow through with that great Blood Grenade and your auto attack. Like, look how much time Death Prophet wastes helping you out with a kill, when in reality you probably could land that by yourself. Right, so the kill you do nab here, nice job by the way, is good, but if you actually check Death Prophet over onto the left here in terms of last hits and highs, she doesn't actually have any last hits, right? That means the kill that you did give her some gold. However, in reality, she's only catching up to the Alchemist. So kills are great, but only if they're actually capitalized on by the Death Prophet and keeping more than just pace with the position 1 carry. Okay, so here you do a good job at repelling back the Alchemist, but I think what happens here is that you kind of overcommit, right? Once the Alchemist has gotten away, you're being reasonable in thinking that you can actually kill him, but also more importantly, is that your focus to kill Alchemist, or is your focus to threaten Alchemist so that he can't get near the creep wave again, thus giving Death Prophet a ton of room to outpace Alchemist in farm. When you frame your objectives that way, and your goals in line with what your offlaner needs, your decisions become a lot more clear. Here, again, you overcommit because you think a kill is needed. But in reality, all you need to do is just push out Alchemist so he becomes fearful to return back to the lane. Here, he acts a little bit scared to kind of prove to my point, even though it's a 2-on-1 lane. That is pretty much what Ignite is for. So now that you've died, you kind of certified Alchemist's comfort in the lane on top of the gold he got for killing you. And it lets him freely farm, knowing DP alone can't threaten him, since again, Ricky is there to help him out in a 2v1 situation. We see this again here, where you try to go for a kill with Fire Blast and Ignite, but he's already back from the creep wave. What is the point of chasing him that far? And again, here at 627, you guys overcommit. By trying to kill Alchemist, you miss a lot of creeps and secure no kills. The focus is last hits for gold, so Dust Prophet can then play the map. By dragging out a fight to their tower, you're not getting any gold or experience, and Alchemist succeeds in wasting time. With his Greevil's Greed, he can recuperate from that wasted time much better than either you or DP. And so for the next 3+ minutes, the lane then stays near the tower, safe for them, and risky for Death Prophet. Before you go for that Wisdom Rune, maybe secure the lane for your teammate by pulling, so it's easier for them to lane without you. I think it's also a bad idea to waste so much time going for the enemy Wisdom Rune. It's a lot of time spent doing nothing. All this leads to is kind of 6 minutes of Alchemist being able to lane without a real support and actually keep pace and net worth as your Death Prophet. Right, I really like this one. Here you snag a 3rd kill on Alchemist, but while it may seem like you actually secured a lot by doing that, I think if we check over the net worth graph, which I just put out here, the range difference between, let's say, Death Prophet and Alchemist kind of shows that it's fairly close to one another, right? It shows that Storm Spirit and Anti-Mage is kind of below Alchemist despite that kill you just snagged, and it kind of shows that Alchemist has a really good start or jumping point from the laning stage that he'll eventually lose, or rather that he'll eventually walk away from evenly, so to speak, right? He's got level 6, he's got Soul Ring, he can now safely start farming the jungle camps at an accelerated pace, especially if he goes uncontested, which we will see throughout the game. So with the laning stage kind of wrapping up, what's going to be key here for you guys is to keep that momentum going and take more towers to establish map control and to shrink down Alchemist's kind of safe areas that he can farm without being threatened or without being harassed or ganked. Right, so I think 1350, I think you start going for the enemy Wisdom Rune here. I think you're a little overthinking here. Trying to snag this enemy Wisdom Rune is smart, but it's not necessary, and you did it with so much risk, right? You have no vision around you, so if the enemy does come for this Wisdom Rune, you really have no way of seeing it, right? Here you go walking up. If you check the minimap here, you have absolutely no vision. They have stacked ancient camps, which you can see here, and I would be pretty much yelling at my team as Ogre that, hey guys, we need to take this stacked ancient camp before the Alchemist does. That is probably much more valuable to steal than a Wisdom Rune, and the vision should be aligned with this sort of thing. What's more is that during this whole process, Alchemist has been farming more so than your Anti-Mage, so this guy is just completely outpacing you while you try and snag a Wisdom Rune, which honestly is just not worthwhile. I think throughout this mid game we are experiencing what you were talking about, right, in your comments, not knowing what to do. I can already see that you kind of not really sure what to do specifically here, right? Once you get that kill on Alchemist, which you can see at the top right, or rather the Storm got it, why not use why do you hang around on their side of the map, right? Why not use your full mana to ignite a creep camp, or how about rallying with the Death Prophet and do damage to a tower? This is especially true when your Storm Spirit gets 2 more kills with the Mars and Silencer, which you'll see here. But then you guys kind of just go back to whatever you're doing. I mean, look at, I'll fast forward just a little bit here, and you can, watch the positioning of the different of your heroes, the Storm, Jakiro, Death Prophet, and Ogre. You guys kind of just, you get a little bit of harassment here, and then you just kind of go back to what you're doing. So, so what does the Alchemist do by 1642, who despite dying is still ahead again in net worth, right? You can see at the top of the map here. He pretty much just goes back to farming. So you guys might not have a huge net worth lead, but you have a lineup that can capitalize on kills that you secured and eventually ward their side of the map instead of going back to hanging on your side of the map. And you kind of just saw Silencer and Mars literally die, come back to life, and then have their ultimate abilities refreshed. Why is there why is there so much passivity for you guys? Or why do you not take advantage of this by farming up your core items, right? Alright, so I kind of jumped the gun in that little bit fast forward before, so let me go back and let's talk about from 14 to 19 minutes, right? We'll check your net worth now at 3,000 gold, so you're really behind. From 14 to 19 minutes, I literally just watched you pretty much walk around. Maybe, you got a few last hits, maybe, you got a kill here or there, and you stack the camp, but it's not really doing much, right? There's not really much proactivity in your part. It's mostly passivity until something actually happens, and it finally does. But again, the Alchemist is in such a net worth lead that the only way to shut him down is to gain map control and to limit his farm. Really, that map control is just not there. Some progress is made, but honestly not enough for you to kind of linger around their side of the map. You can see here with no ability to really do more. What effectively happens is just, I mean, you just kind of hung around long enough for them to come back and do it all over again, which we'll see in an eventual team fight with the Mars and the Silencer Ultimate. You know, every death that you guys die means that the Alchemist has more free farm, knowing that there's a 5-man team that's no longer 5, they're now 4. So, you know, eventually he does gain a lot of gold quickly, and even though you guys had a lot of great moments and seemed strong, you were never really truly ahead if their carry is outpacing all of you. When I mentioned map control as a support, I kind of mean that, you know, you're supposed to gain vision on their side of the map. If we look now, there's really no wards on their side of the map. In fact, I think you guys still put out defensive wards. On top of that, there's no smoke gangs, right, on their side of the map. You know, especially with a Storm who has Orchid, and then start picking off heroes, 1 or 2 heroes, so you can then push with your Death Prophet, or at least reduce Alchemist's comfort. Right, so I think everything after the 20-minute mark is just an eventuality of what was not achieved, right? At 24:18, so let's fast forward a tiny bit here. There we go. There we go. 24:18. You can see everybody kind of die. 24:18, everybody died, and you just kind of linger around when there's nothing really to achieve. Can you really defend that tier 1 tower, or is it completely pointless? So last point here, I think you guys try to make one last stand at 27:31, and as the game kind of starts to end, you opt for, I can see it queued at the bottom right, that you opt for Ag Scepter. But what do you really hope to achieve with that? And with the amount of times your team is dying, is there something better to get with your team, right? Solar Crest, Glimmer, Force Staff, Lotus Orb, etc. I mean, Ag Scepter is kind of a win more item, right? It deals more damage to your target on top of a brutal stun combined with your Fire Blast. But you can see for the last 15-20 minutes, I would say, that you're pretty much being overrun by the enemy, and there's literally nothing to save you guys. So by like 31 minutes, the enemy team has a huge lead in net worth and items, but their damage output is also astronomical, right? If we take a look at Sansa, who was mid, he has 62 intelligence, which is pretty nuts. He's got a Scythe device. We got an Ag Scepter online, which is also just absolutely insane. While your team has really no magic resist and no consistency in damage output, since your cores just get jumped on. So what are the key lessons to learn from all this? Essentially 3 points. 1, your laning stage focus should be on enabling your core offlaner to farm, but also preventing the enemy from farming. That doesn't always mean you need to kill them. The kill threat itself can be sufficient, and adjusting your mana spend on your abilities needs to reflect that. Throwing down Fire Blast and Ignite every chance you get does damage, but the enemy can recover. Use your spells for a purpose that you can guarantee. Ignite to harass with your right click so the enemy can't be so far away from the tower lest they want to die from your attacks. 2, passivity is death. Waiting on enemy wisdom runes, hanging around an area from a fight with no intent to be able to do anything, sitting on full mana are all giant wastes of time where you could be smoke ganking, stacking jungle camps more than once or twice, and farming your core items with your abilities. While you are passive, so is Alchemist, who gets a lot more out of the whole thing due to Grievel's greed. When your team is passive, the enemy team respawns with refreshed ultimate abilities and kills you all. Getting kills are great, but I believe you guys only pushed for 2 towers with Death Prophet's Exorcism, tier 1 top tower and tier 2 bottom tower. That's not nearly enough, and thus you eventually lost map control when you seldom took advantage of it. Finally, last point, itemize to the situation, not to your desires. 8 to lens when you already have the neutral item is some serious range, but that's it. After 2-3 team wipes, there should be an indication that your focus on reaching your enemies is too costly, and instead you need to build items for your team and thus don't need as much range since they're closer and safer near you. The Ag Scepter is desirable, but only helps against a single target when the enemy is literally overrunning you all. What's key to note is that if you had Midas earlier by farming for it during those times where you felt you had nothing to do, you'd have maybe 2-3 support items to help your team out. So, all in all, this was definitely a team flop on not doing enough shutting down an Alchemist and letting your small teamfight wins kind of dissolve rather than securing objectives and shrinking Alchemist's comfortable farming spots. By 20 minutes, the focus for everyone to farm is unfortunately too late, as the enemy have begun to swing back in their own gangs and opportunities where they do capitalize on it and end the game, as you can see subsequently. Alright, so I hope that helped you out, and I'll be in the comments to see what you guys think, as well as to hear Ryuwalker's thoughts. Thank you again, Ryuwalker, for sending in your replay, and subscribing as a paying membership for my Dota 2 YouTube channel, as well as saving the guides. Let me know if you guys like this sort of content, and I'll see you guys next time.